Hey, Tony Gaskins here, popping in. Want to um, follow up on what I was talking about earlier with the twin flames and the soulmates and us searching for meaning. Now, I was reading, an article about twin flames, and the writer, which said a lot to me, had to be the writer was like a yogi, like a Reiki master, the spiritual people who go into these deep spiritual beliefs and go into on this journey of searching, this journey of meaning, this journey of finding purpose, illuminating one's soul. People as humans, we're searching for meaning. We're searching for purpose. And so those who have gotten out of the rat race, some of those people find a way to capitalize on human nature. And some of those people may create terminology, may create ideology, philosophy that other humans will buy into and believe and determine their life based on this ideology, based on this terminology. And these individuals will be richly rewarded. Steve Jobs says the difference between leaders and followers is innovation. So what you have to realize, these terms that we are searching for, we are looking for closure. We are looking for meaning. We are looking for understanding. We are looking for the pathway, a guide to life. And a lot of people just won't turn to a historical book like a Holy Bible. A lot of people want to go beyond that and feel that life is more than that and that they are deeper than that. And the same reason why we look for these terms and these definitions is the same reason how atheist is formed. The human mind can't wrap itself around things. So we need it to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then we just can't function. So we have to make it make sense by being able to define it, being able to label it, being able to confine it, being able to make our brain understand it. But what we do when we do that is we limit it. So if I never fully try to describe God, nor do I ever fully try to describe love, because they're one and the same and they're infinite. So what you have to understand about the human experience and about relationships, if you are on a relationship journey, if you are single, or meaning you're not married and happy in that marriage, you have to be very careful with the terminology that you buy into. You have to understand that you are a human that cannot be confined and cannot be defined. And that you are a human that has agency over your life, and you get to choose what you do, what you say, the standards you set, and what you will and won't tolerate. And that you get to make sense of your life, meaning you get to decide on what love will look like for you. And you do not have to settle. But you also have to make sure that you're not holding on to someone else's description of love, someone else's definition of love. You have to make sure that you're not looking for something that someone else has defined in their search for meaning. So a lot of times we have terminology that was created by a broken human, a human who was in a position of authority and had the opportunity to define their experience or to label their experience. And so they come up with a name. Let's just use twin flame. And then they describe this. And then everybody who runs into this term, they find holes in it, and then they further expound upon it. And now it becomes this whole book of something that people start seeking to find. And so what happens is the people who buy into it will go into an experience trying to make that experience fit inside of the confinement of the definition they've read of this term. And while the relationship is intended to be fluid and to be like water and form and conform to its own shape, to its own being, to its own meaning, where no two relationships will look exactly the same. But because we've bought into a term and we've read definitions of it, we've read examples of it from another human who could be more broken than you, more broken than I. But we've given them the power to define our destiny, to define our life. So we go forward in life looking for something that has been created by someone else instead of manifesting the creation that was intended for us. So you have to understand the dangers of buying into terms that you did not create with your heart and spirit from your experience, because from your experience you have terms that you can create. And if you are not responsible with the term and express that this is your personal experience and that no one else should try to duplicate your exact experience, because every human experience is unique unto itself. So if you are irresponsible in that area, then you will have a legion of people being led to their doom, to their demise, to their misery, because they are trying to duplicate something that you define for yourself based on your understanding and your experience. And so we have to be careful with that, and we have to make sure. That's why I never read horoscopes. I never read horoscopes, because a horoscope will say, you are feeling like this, or today you will experience this, or this month you will experience this. And guess what? It's not written by your creator. It's written by a human who is flawed. And although there may be some truth that you can find, or a lie that you accept as truth, now your brain cannot see beyond it. So you will attract the very thing that you just confined yourself to, because you read a horoscope or you went and got a psychic reading, because you could not wait for your life to manifest what is intended for your life. You had to have answers. You wanted to know the path and the play, and you needed to know your future, instead of embracing the present and operating authentically and creating what is uniquely designed for you. You wanted to have everything laid out to give your brain closure so that you could move with what you call a sense of peace. But really, you're actually accepting someone else's fate. You're actually accepting someone else's curse on your life, or blessing. But where there's a blessing, someone will also have a curse. That's why I don't read about my sign based on the month that I'm born in, because I don't want someone else to define my experience based on the stars or the alignment of the universe that they are interpreting, and I don't know them, their brain, or their interpretation skills. But just because they have a pen and a pad or a keyboard with some keystrokes, they don't get the right to define my experience based on their flawed interpretation of the universal alignment. So therefore, I will dictate my experience through personal choice and let what may be created from me choosing to operate in the highest form of myself, I let that show up and manifest and come to fruition in my life. And so understand this. A lot of times we are trapped by definitions. We are trapped by our interpretation. We are trapped by comprehension. And so you have to understand, when I said the word manifest, a lot of people will understand that differently. Some Christians or spiritual people will think that is sacrilegious. The definition, according to Webster, says readily perceived by the senses, and especially by the sense of sight. Easily understood or recognized by the mind. Obvious. The verb is to make evident or certain by showing or displaying. The noun is a list of passengers or an invoice of cargo for a vehicle. So you see, word takes different meaning in different contexts to different people at different times in different ways. So you have to be very careful with words. You could take a word. This definition was not written by your creator. It was created by a human who was created by the creator. This human who wrote this definition is also flawed, is also lost, is also searching for meaning like you and I. So therefore, you have to take agency over your life and stop letting other people define your life or predict your life or confine your life or dictate or determine your destiny. You have to be willing to live it out on your own, to use the functionality of your brain to make a decision to operate as your best self, as your highest self, to set standards for your life, to have morals and values for your life, and to operate from a place of self-love. And that self-love will then send you into a place of selflessness instead of selfishness. And that will attract to you the people and things that you need in your life. And that will then manifest, bring about, make a reality so that you could perceive with your eyes what you have perceived in your mind based on who you decided you would be, not determined by a label. Now, see, people always say to me, Tony, what do you think about twin flames? Tony, what do you think about soulmates? Tony, what do you think about this? Tony, what do you think about this? Tony, what do you think? And guess what? When people bring these terms to me, these are terms that I have never read on purpose, because I don't want someone else who is not the creator or connected to the creator in my knowledge to define my experience as a human. So I stay away from reading someone's definition of love, because love cannot be defined because it is infinite. And you have to remember that. So understand, live, choose. What do you want? What does love look like to you? What does love mean to you? What is a happy relationship to you? I'm extremely happy with my wife. But you know what? I don't believe that I sold drugs in college and skipped practice and slept with over 100 women to meet my wife. I don't believe that I was making those decisions to bring me to my wife. I went to college in West Virginia. I then went to college in Tampa, Florida. The reason why I went to college in Tampa, Florida was because I got kicked off of my college football team in West Virginia. I got kicked off of my college football team because of the decisions I was making. So that brought me to Tampa, Florida. I like Tampa more than Orlando. My hometown is in between the two. Orlando felt too ritzy and glitzy and Disney World for me. Tampa felt a little more livable and real. So I chose USF over UCF. I applied to USF and I was accepted. I went to USF. I chose an apartment complex based on a Google search. I moved in, and it was in that apartment complex. My wife lived in the same apartment complex. I spoke to her, but she was in a relationship. I later bumped into her again outside of our complex at the mall. And I did not know she was the same person. Now, I do not believe she was brought from Jamaica to Tampa, Florida, and raised in Tampa, Florida to meet me. I also do not believe that I made all the bad decisions in my life to end up in Tampa, Florida to meet her. I also do not believe we are meant to be. Meaning we could have easily, just as we are together, we could easily be apart. Because she is Jamaican. I am American. That is two very different things. Two different ways of life. So we work together now in a happy relationship, but it takes healthy compromise. And we are happy together, but we don't see the world the same. So I cannot call my wife, who I work seamlessly with, a twin flame, which would be defined as the other half of my soul. I cannot say she's the other half of my soul. But what I can attest to is the sacrifice and the healthy compromise of ego that we've made to be together. But yet we are polar opposites. Everything that she likes and everything that she is everything that I'm not. So that's not one soul. And that's not a twin. So what we have to understand is that someone experienced something and then they said, what is this? And even a flame. Flames go out. Flames die. And unless you continue to consistently and forever feed the flame will die. So a flame is not something that goes with a twin. So when you look at a term you'll realize it comes from a mind of a human experience, of someone searching for a term to poetically define what they were experiencing, and then others collaborating with this individual to flesh out this term, to give it meaning, to give it purpose, to give it shape and form, to give it a definition. And on paper, it is poetically beautiful. So therefore, we start to seek what we've read. And we can meet someone who will not look or feel like a twin. But had we not had that definition in our mind, we could have allowed the person we met to take shape and form like water in our life. And we could have created everlasting love through healthy compromise, communication, and sacrifice. But because it did not initially look and feel like a magical or mystical connection that reminded you of someone that you've once known before, that reminded you of the other half of your soul, you can walk away. So my wife and I, we had an amazing conversation. But it wasn't the conversation that made me say, this is my wife. It was her character. It was her belief system. But even then, my flaws, her flaws, could have ruined us. So that is why I say I don't believe in soulmates. Because just how she and I made it work, she could have made it work with any other man that was willing to make it work. I could have made it work with any other woman that was willing to make it work. But see, what it takes is two willing people. And what happens is we meet people that are on a different maturity wavelength. We meet people who have different upbringings and backgrounds and life experiences. And at the time that we intersect with these people, they are not ready to grow. They are not ready to change. They are not ready to sacrifice. So therefore, we butt heads and then we have to go our separate ways. But that person, if you meet someone who wants what you want at the same time that you want it, the two of you can be polar opposites, could have nothing in common other than a will to work, and it can work. So that in itself will take a new form and have a new term and a new definition that is unique to only your relationship. And that if your blueprint was prescribed and applied by the next set of two people, they could fail miserably because it doesn't fit them, because they are different people. So, no, I do not believe that there's one person in the world for you, because humans are created to interconnect. Humans are created to come together, to collaborate, male and female. That is why male and female reproduces new life. So what that means is, it would be a very cruel world if out of 7 billion people, there was only one person for you. If the other half of your soul was missing and your whole purpose in life was to bump into and to magnetically be drawn to the other half of your soul. And for the other half of your soul to strategically be in your vicinity. That would be a very cruel existence. So what you have to understand is humans have the ability to adapt. Humans have the ability to connect. And that the language of love is universal. So you can meet someone in another land, not speak the same verbal language, but still learn how to speak the same heart language. And you can fall in love through physical touch, through eye connection, through emotion, through gestures, through companionship, and through the desire to teach one another based on what life has taught you. You can fall in love with any human being who is willing and ready to love. But that does not mean that that person is the other half of your soul or the mate to your soul, because love is not found. It is created, and it is created based on our willingness to work. So understand that. And I urge you to take the limits off of your life. Take the limits off of your mind. And to say and believe that you can achieve and you can receive your heart's desire. And don't be bound by terms. It's a lot of terms that could define me as a black male. But I've taken the limits off of my mind. And that has allowed me to create things in my life, to attract things in my life, for things to manifest in my life before my very eyes that was seen in my mind. Things that I'm doing today, the people that it's being done with. One of the things that's coming to pass right now in my life, the gentleman said, "Do you know you've been in our system for 3 years?" And I said, "Yes," because I had a desire and a vision to own one of these for my business, for my lifestyle, years before I could ever afford it. But because I set that goal, it pushed me into a zone of creation to bring about what I needed to be in a place to afford my heart's desire, to aid my business, my life, my purpose, and my family. But had I accepted a term like marginalized, had I accepted a term like at risk, had I accepted a term like inferior, had I accepted a term like redlined, had I accepted a term like gentrified, had I accepted a term like mental slavery, had I looked to understand my experience and why my life was the way it is, and found an explanation or terminology to define my life and to confine my life, I would have never been able to break outside of that confinement. But because I refused to accept labels, had I believed that a college degree is the only way to become successful, I would not be here. Had I believed that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, one of your parents would have to be an entrepreneur, I would not be here. So what I'm asking you is to stop seeking closure. Stop seeking meaning. Stop seeking a definition. Stop seeking terminology to define and confine your experience. And instead, just be. Just operate. Operate. Just decide. Just choose. Just speak. Just go. And let your life define itself. Let your experience define itself. And then you will realize there's no word in the dictionary to define in its entirety what your life has produced. Hey, this is Tony Gasson. God bless you. We'll talk soon.